Okay, I'm here at the headquarters of the British Horse Racing Authority with the Chief Executive, Nick Rust. Thank you very much for agreeing to do this, Nick. We just start right from the beginning, really. You've been in the racing industry all your adult life. What sparked the interest in that in the beginning?
Well, one Saturday about 6 stone ago, I was playing semi-professional football as a 14-year-old through my school and with Berwick Rangers as well, and for some reason our game wasn't on, and my dad said, "What are you going to do today?" And I think I said something sullen like, "I want to spend time with my mates on Woolworth steps down in the town." So my dad said, "No, you're being dragged along to Kelso races," as he put it, and I went along with a form analyst, as I knew him to be. He was really one of my dad's colleagues at work who was into his racing. I was a bit sullen, got dragged along, but he took me down to the Bookies. Because I love maths, I sort of was intrigued by the chalkboards and the odds and the prices, and he explained it a bit to me. And I remember that my dad and this chap David went off to watch the racing, and suddenly, from being a sullen teenager, well, I was probably still that, the sky became coloured in. I could smell the horses. I fell in love with it really that day. So it was really the numbers on the Bookies boards that sparked my interest, and you know, I started betting a little bit on the horses, underage of course at that time, and my love of the sport grew from there.
I think it's safe to say that in your career, you've been a flyer. I mean, started from the very beginnings as a cashier.
I've taken a flyer.
And but what drove you to be such an achiever? Because it's fairly difficult to come from the very bottom to the very top.
I think. I don't know, I think I failed at college. I got kicked out. I spent most of my time at Ealing College, and my wife Margarita was studying in Newcastle, and I think I spent more time in Newcastle and more time at Kempton Park, Newmarket and Sandown than I did at Ealing College. And I remember turning up for an exam, a law exam. I was studying economics and accountancy actually. Turning up for an exam and thinking, when the invigilator said turn the papers over, thinking, why am I sat in this room? I haven't been to any of the lectures. Why has it not dawned on me? Why have I been deluding myself? And of course, I quite rightly got kicked out after year 2. I flew my exams in the first year without doing any work and thought it was dead easy. Year 2 caught me out. And I think from then, my mum and dad were, well, what are you going to do with yourself? You've failed. I think my dad was seen by my mother as someone who hadn't fully achieved. And here I was repeating the sins of the father, so to speak. Although I love my dad very much, he wasn't a huge high achiever in his work, and I just thought I'd better get on with this, better do something. And I was working for Ladbrokes as a board marker at the time in the summer, in the days before the screens were there, and I applied for a job with Ladbrokes. And I guess I just wanted, in those early years, and perhaps even until quite recently, I wanted to show my folks that they were wrong writing me off at that stage.
So would that path still be open, do you think, these days?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I think from betting into racing, it's hard. I got very lucky, moved into the job here. I mean, I went from one dream industry into another part of my dream industry. I think that's hard to achieve. It's going to be limited to a few, obviously, for a senior role like this, but there's no reason why people can't work their way through. And you see many great people working in the betting industry, be it on course or in the betting shops or indeed in the many online businesses now. Fantastic, innovative people who work hard and make their own luck. So yeah, I think people can work their way through.
So if my research is correct, you were involved in the early days of online betting.
Yes.
There was quite a bit of transparency all of a sudden. Was that a real aid to the layers to see who were the winners and who were the losers?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was more involved in the operational side, building the websites, customer service. I think in the old days at Ladbrokes, and we weren't the first on the scene, but about 1999, 2000, the orders were still coming through a web link, but being printed off locally. That's how much technology was involved. But yes, it gave more transparency. It gave more issues as well to manage particular customers. Suddenly, you had the whole world trying to get on when your price was wrong, the early controls on the internet to manage that business weren't as sophisticated as they are now.
So, with that sophistication, do you personally feel that the bookmakers these days are a bit too liberal with a restrict dial?
Well, I think they're doing it for good business reasons, but I think Look, gaming obviously is a big part of the profits of online and bookmakers, and indeed in retail bookmakers as well. And a lot of, if you can have a customer who spends the majority of their money on gaming, then that's likely to be more profitable than one who doesn't, and who sticks to sports betting. So I think they have been looking for a particular profile of customers over the last few years. And I think sometimes that means that patterns emerge about a particular bet or a particular punter, and you can get put into a category quite quickly with some of the algorithms that are in play. I think bookmakers will have to work a bit harder at that over the next few years, because the restrictions that are now going to come on, or likely to, on fixed odds betting terminals, but also the scrutiny online as well, means that I think betting operators will have to look more at their bookmaking skills and finessing it a bit more than perhaps an algorithm spotting a pattern and coming down quite hard on customers when a profit can be made from them across the piece.
Okay, so would you, modest staking punters that are even modestly successful, should there be a lower limit for when you start restricting people?
Well, look, I'm not in the business anymore, and it's for others to decide for their own businesses, but I think we can see there are examples of companies who do not restrict so much, who are benefiting from wider business. And you've got to make sure you have your hand on the tiller in the right way. Some companies are betting to very low margins and are happy to have customers who are only in their eyes generating 1 or 2% margin. Others are looking for customers at 10% plus. But some do it successfully at lower margins and can manage the balance of the fact that you may have some customers who are very profitable on racing but lose money on football and spend a little bit on gaming. And I think that further level of sophistication and confidence is coming into some firms, and will need to across the piece for those that want to survive.
Okay, we'll get the contentious issues done. The FOBT debate. What is your personal opinion on fixed odds betting terminals?
Well, I like playing them, and I enjoy playing them very much, and perhaps because I'm very fortunate I own very well. A £2 stake on roulette, which is what's being proposed in some quarters, would not provide me with the necessary thrill. I want 10 or 20 quid on, or whatever it may be. But there's no doubt in my mind, having operated these for a number of years at Coral and then Ladbrokes. The first time I was at Ladbrokes, we didn't have them; they didn't exist. But in my later years, before I joined the BHA, I operated them, and I was acutely aware that a proportion of the money generated through these machines is coming from people who are identified or could be identified as problem gamblers. And another chunk of it is coming from some money laundering. So I think the betting operators recognise that, but there's so much more that needs to be done, and I think that there need to be more controls. So the government is acting, the betting operators are also acting. Perhaps they've been a bit slow to respond, but more controls should be in place to make sure that people can control their gambling. And if that means lower limits, which I think quite clearly it means lower than £100, but to what level they go to, if it means lower limits, that's got to be one of the effective ways of managing things for people.
Do you think there's a risk that eventually the bookmaker's going to say, hold on a minute, this has got nothing to do with horse racing, why should we give you any from the FOBTs?
Well, we don't earn directly from the machines. We earn a percentage of profits on horse racing, so 10% of anything that's won on horse racing in the betting shops is paid over, the same online. But betting shops, there's no doubt that betting shops are probably open in larger numbers at the moment, because machines do exist at the levels that they are. If there is a restriction coming, then that's likely to mean some betting shops close. And actually, British Racing earns about £30,000 to £35,000 in media rights from every shop that stays open. So we don't earn directly, but our business model at the moment, the racecourses who hold the rights, the rights holders have built their business model with betting shops on the basis that they will sell a fixed fee, or broadly a fixed fee per shop. So a decline in shop numbers will hit our profitability in the short and medium term. I think the clear thing is to say, well, where is the value going to be in the future, and that we need to adjust. And quite clearly, there are more and more people betting online now. About 60% of turnover on British Racing from British customers is now digital. A higher proportion of profit comes from the shops because of the margins there, but people are voting with their feet and betting online, and that's where the rights holders need to earn their money. So I think there will be a move away, if you want to put it in those crude terms. I wouldn't use those terms, but there will be a move away from earning from the shops and the FOBTs naturally through an adjustment of media rights.
Okay, from a professional point of view, you reached the top of the bookmaking industry. Why did you decide to change direction?
Well, I didn't quite reach the top, and so I was at operations director type level, and I sat on executive boards. But yes, I enjoyed that very much. I worked my way through, enjoyed it very much. But then the chance to come and make a difference in British racing, when I was already a racing fan, I was lucky enough to have some shares in racehorses, and I just loved going racing whenever I could. The chance to come and be the chief executive of the British Horseracing Authority was something I couldn't miss. I still pinch myself every day about it. It's a tremendous privilege.
When you took on your current role, what did you consider to be the most pressing problem with racing?
Funding. So the levy, which had stood the sport in good stead for a number of years, was likely to generate £50 million, compared with a high of about 120 million 10 years ago. And that was directly a result of the fact that the levy did not cover any offshore betting. So pretty much all of digital betting was not covered. Betting shops were losing share, so the levy money was dropping to racing, and we were struggling to continue to run the extent of an industry that provides betting opportunities 362 days a year. So that was needed, and probably one other thing, which is, and unfortunately we persuaded government and that loophole has now been closed. But the other thing was really around people and making sure we had enough capable people to look after our horses. We need about a workforce of about 7,000, and we're about 500 or 600 short. That remains an issue for us. Another issue for us now that we need to focus on very much is equine welfare and perceptions of equine welfare. So we're speaking now very shortly after the Cheltenham Festival, and unfortunately we lost 6 horses, each one of them a tragedy, at Cheltenham, which is too many to lose. It's a rate above that we accept as an average, and fatality rates have been falling over the years. They've fallen by over a third in the last 20 years through equine science improvements, through racecourse improvements to the design of the fences and so on. But we have to keep on improving, so we've announced a review and we're looking at all of the factors that contributed to 6 equine deaths at the festival, and we want to learn lessons and make improvements. So with government constantly focusing on animal welfare now, and it's even higher on the agenda than ever, our sport can take nothing for granted on that. So we have to put practical improvements in, and we have to continue to work to educate the public on it. That's probably the biggest challenge now.